As the trio rounded the corner, they rushed directly into a group of the mugger's friends, who promptly came to their aid, issuing Jacob a mighty beating. His brother, unaware, safely made his escape, only to witness Jacob's return home bloodied and bruised. Jacob jumped from the boxcar as it slowly rolled into the yard. He executed a perfect landing. Standing there proudly, he puckered his lips and drew one last time on what was left of his cigarette, savoring the last of its nicotine. Tossing the smoldering butt onto the tracks, he rubbed his hand over his unshaven face, where a white stubble had emerged. "I'm getting too old for this nonsense," he thought to himself as he walked across the train yard. Jumping freight trains, sleeping on the ground, and enduring the elements didn't come as easily as they used to. He hadn't always lived this way. Jacob did have 3 grown children. Emma, his eldest, lived somewhere in Baltimore, Maryland. Frankie, the youngest, lived with his older brother, Tom, and his family in Chicago, the last Jacob had heard. Tom and Frankie were the motives for Jacob's visit to the city. He needed to put things right between himself and his 2 sons. Jacob had been riddled with guilt over the years for the tragedy he'd brought upon his older son, evidenced by a limp Tom would have the rest of his life. A recent near-death experience out west spurred Jacob to take an accounting of his life. He came down with a bad bout of pneumonia and almost didn't make it. While lying in a hospital bed in Nevada, he came to the realization he needed to reconcile with his children before his time ran out. 5 years had passed since he had last seen his sons, even longer since he had seen Emma. He hadn't seen his granddaughter since she was a baby. Emma made sure of that. He had yet to meet Tom's young son, Michael, who was born 3 years earlier. Jacob's relationship with his children was chilly at best, and it took years just to reach that level of warmth. Tom's parting words from Jacob's last visit still echoed in his head. "Now get out of here and never come back again." His encounters with Emma had a similar history. Jacob's family wanted little to do with him, and for good reason. As he made his way through the streets of Chicago, he noticed there were not many young men about, and the ones that wore uniforms. World War II was in full fury. Most of the young men of Chicago, like young men in every other city and town in America, were being consumed by the global war. He wondered about Frankie. Was he, too, wearing a uniform? Jacob often pondered about his youngest child. He knew Tom and Emma were fine. They were strong, sometimes even stubborn, much like him. But Frankie was different, more like his mother, sensitive and overly generous, far less independent than his siblings. The turmoil Jacob had brought upon his family seemed to have a more profound effect on Frankie, but in a quiet sort of way. He never lost his temper or showed anger toward Jacob, as did Tom and Emma. Frankie always seemed less emotional, more withdrawn. But Jacob knew that what he had done had deeply scarred his youngest child. Through it all, though, Frankie seemed to show Jacob more love and respect than his siblings. Jacob projected a tough exterior, walking with a cocky gait, but on the inside, he was hurting. Haunted by memories of the past, filled with regrets and what-ifs, he longed for love and companionship, which had evaded him for so many years. For most of the last 2 decades, Jacob existed in an